Good evening. Welcome to my channel. And tonight we are going to be doing an audio commentary for Children of a Lesser God. This is a movie that I've seen many times growing up. And when I was looking into what I was going to do for my next commentary after Desperate Characters, which was this obscure 1971 drama starring Shirley MacLaine, I guess I started getting a kick for, other movies that are either long since forgotten or not talked about anymore for a variety of reasons. And when I noticed that Children of a Lesser God was coming up on its 35th anniversary today, which is actually today. Today is the 35th anniversary of this movie coming out in theaters in 1986 on October 3rd. Did very well at the box office, made about $35 million on a $10 million budget, which is pretty impressive. It garnered several Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture. First time a woman had ever directed a movie that got a nomination for Best Picture. And that's this film directed by Rhonda Haines, Children of the Lesser God. William Hurt was nominated for Best Actor. Marlee Matlin was nominated for Best Actress and won. And I believe it was also nominated for Best Screenplay Adaptation, which in fact, this film is based on a play. Now, real quick, for those of you who want to see the movie, because I don't want to spend too much time on this intro, I am going to post down here in the comment section where you can go see the movie for free. Just hit that link. In fact, I'll bring it up here. Yeah, go ahead and go to this link. This is, you can watch Children of the Lesser God for free over at Amazon Prime via the Stars channel. And like I said, I am currently paused at 0001, right when the Paramount logo begins to fade in. So I will give anybody else adequate amount of time, say another 3 or 4 minutes, for you to sync up and everything. Yeah, just go ahead and hit that link and just pause literally right when the Paramount logo comes on. Pause, and we'll press play here in just a few minutes. But at any rate, Children of a Lesser God is a film that I saw, like I said, many times, to the point where, I mean, let's put it this way. This was back in the VHS days, and my father, who was a English teacher for 20 years, loved this movie. He thought it was a wonderful look at the deaf community, and certainly at a different kind of love story, a very unique, classic, Hollywood love story. There are formula ticks, as a lot of love stories do, but in my case at least, I mean, I'm willing to overlook those because I love this movie so much. But at any rate, so it's based on a play. I mean, we'll actually just a few, 2 more minutes here. Anybody who's on the stream, say hi. We'll try to give you a shout out throughout the commentary. I apologize on the last one because I pretty much started just talking about the movie and completely forgot. Oh my God, I have a platform. I have a chat section. I will try to read your comments and post them up or answer any questions that I possibly can. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm kind of winging it tonight because this past week has been, an incredible amount of stress. I mean, I don't want to say ill, but I mean, I've been, I've been dealing with a lot of stress and a lot of just being tired. I mean, I work in Manhattan, and oh man, it's just another week where it just brings you down. I mean, it really does. But at any rate, so like I said, I'm kind of gonna be winging it because I mean, there were other things that I wanted to do in preparation for this, but I'm just gonna shoot for the top of the Paramount Mountain tonight. So see what goes on. So at any rate, there's the link right there. Give it about another minute or so. I'm actually very excited to talk about this because just a couple. Yeah, there's a couple more things I'll say before we officially start. That here again, this is not a film that's talked about anymore, and I would like to bring it back into the spotlight and see. Um, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it's not talked about, and some of them, a lot of them, I will talk about tonight, or at least explore. But also, just for the fact that it's a love story with a very unique angle or catch, and I want to eventually see what this would, if this could work, if it were, dare I say it, remade. I mean, I will talk about that as well. I don't want to spoil things at the moment, but that's just a little teaser of what. But I also hear, oh, and this is the other thing too. I want to see it on Blu-ray. I don't know why Paramount has been so lax in this department when it comes to distribution. I mean, I remember when they did that whole I love the 80s DVD line, and they put that on there. And I mean, look, I mean, you can make an argument with just for the fact that the soundtrack has a Pointer Sister song. I don't know. I can't stipulate. I mean, it just felt like that was a little inappropriate for this type of movie. I mean, more appropriate for Footloose than as opposed for Children of Lesser God. I mean, I don't know. But at least they were still distributing it. And, and of course, disappointed with the fact no bonus features, no commentaries. And here again, for understandable reasons and not understandable reasons. But I would like to see Paramount. I mean, they have a brand new line of Blu-rays they've been putting out recently for, films like Breakdown with Kurt Russell, and hell, they've even gone back to the Cheek, 1921, Rudolph Valentino. Um, so they got a large new line of Blu-rays they've been putting out in recent months, and I just want to see this movie on there. I'm not expecting this commentary to be seriously put on the Blu-ray as well. I'm not shooting for that because here again, I'm I tend to be a little amateurish than most other commentators on there, and I will here again try my best to provide to at least be lively throughout this thing, because as much as I love this movie, it's going to be a stretch to get through. Um, as a matter of fact, let me just I will give me 30 seconds. Give me 30 seconds. I am just going to run and get a glass of cold water, and we will start this thing. I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. Thank you very much for that brief pause so I can get some water. And I believe that we are ready to go through this thing. So, like I said, just one last time, the link provided on the screen where you can watch the movie for free on Amazon Prime via the Stars Network. So, without further ado, and like I said, I mean, if anybody's out there, feel free to put in a comment in the chat. Please say hi. I will try to read them off as I can. But here again, I'm mostly going to be concerned on the movie and getting through this thing. So, at any rate, so I think we shall get going on the count of three. Like I said, 001, the very start of the Paramount logo, and on the count of three, three, two, and one, and play. Yeah. This was a big year for Paramount, and they had their most successful Star Trek movie. They had one of the most successful Friday the 13th movies. Um, Big year for Paramount. Now, this film, like I said, was the directorial debut of Rhonda Haines, who didn't, and unfortunately, despite her Oscar nomination, did not make a lot of movies after this. She did an excellent film called The Doctor with star William Hurt 2 years after this, and but still, this movie was very successful with critics, winning awards including Best Actress, who, of course, we will talk about as the film progresses. William Hurt was at the zenith of his stardom in the 1980s when this came out. He had started out in 1980 in Altered States, the Ken Russell film, eventually starring in Lawrence Kasdan's Body Heat with Kathleen Turner. The Big Chill was another big film. He had already had 6 or 7 years under his belt when he did Children of a Lesser God, and in fact won the Academy Award for Best Actor the year before for Kiss of the Spider Woman. But here we have Marlee Matlin opening up the movie, because I'm going to say it right now, this is Marlee Matlin's movie in so many ways and on so many levels, and that's why I adore it so much. Beautiful opening shot of New Brunswick, and the music by Michael Convertino, I think, sets the mood beautifully. Now, I like this. He's starring Marlee Matlin. William Hurt. People knew who William Hurt was. When this movie came out, people were asking who Marlee Matlin was. So, I mean, and I love the supporting cast, who we will talk about a little bit later. Um, But first, we should give a little bit background as to the source of this movie, which is, of course, a play by Mark Medoff, uh, uh, which I believe first was put on the stage in 1979. It eventually won the Tony Award for Best Play in 1980, and Laurence Olivier Awards the year later. I mean, it was a very successful and very well received play. And in fact, as the supporting cast ends here on these beautiful shots of him coming into New Brunswick, we have the very first credit, which is a huge, originally produced on Broadway by Emanuel Eisenberg, the Schubert Organization, Dasha Epstein, Ron Dante, and the Mark Taper Forum. Um, they deserve that massive credit, all of them, I think. Uh, Now, my personal experience with this with the play is actually non-existent. I must confess, I've never seen it on the stage. Uh, I found out a bit too late that there was a 2018 revival on Broadway, um, featuring Joshua Jackson, of all people, as James Leeds, who many in my generation will remember from the Mighty Ducks movies, but sadly, I never got to see the revival. I didn't know about it. But look, the thing is that when I think of Lesser God, I think of the movie. And, I took film adaptations in college, and I was able to, spot different avenues and routes that the collaborators and the creators would go down. I mean, as you can see here, screenplay credit by Hesper Anderson and Mark Medoff. Um, the play, as it is written, it's mostly set in the classroom, and it's told from William's point of view. From James Leeds' point of view, directed by Rhonda Haines. It's told by James Leeds' point of view in flashback, and I mean, there is one significant, well, actually two significant characters from the play that are almost dropped entirely. One is dropped entirely, the other isn't. Um, Philip, who is a remarkable stage actor and character actor who's been in dozens of movies over the years. This may be my favorite film, and he's given a bit more to do than most. I think if you might remember him from like Trading Places, only appears for like a bit early, and he says like a line or two. But he had bigger roles in other movies. But here again, I mean, he's very well known in the theater world.
I'm sure you do have a lot of energy and a lot of new ideas. I did too. But nobody's trying to change the world around here. Just trying to help a few deaf kids get along a little bit. That's all.
A few deaf kids to get along together. Razzle dazzle. Yeah, exactly. So it's established here that William Hurt is a teacher of the deaf, and he comes to this new school to teach. And here we have Lydia, played by Alison Gomph, who is a character in the play. And the other kids they didn't have any. I mean, they didn't have a lot of speaking lines. I mean, admittedly, I just cruise through the play. I mean, I know I'm going to botch something here, but the thing is that the other kids weren't really part of it. Now, it's funny, Marlee Matlin was discovered on a videotape playing one of the kids. Here again, this is something that if Paramount puts out a Blu-ray, how about we see that audition tape as a bonus feature on the Blu-ray? Because I think it would be fascinating to see. William Hurt has a very I pretty funny introduction here that hooks you in. I mean, as if you were a student in this class. Or maybe I mean, actually, to retract that a little bit. One of the criticisms of this film at the time was actually put out by Roger Ebert, of all people. And despite the fact that they gave the movie 2 thumbs up, Roger Ebert noted in his review, which is available on YouTube for anybody who wants to view it, that because the movie hears that it limits it, we wish that it was told from Sarah's point of view. Now, I very recently saw an episode called Only Murders in the Building, the 7th episode, which they posted this past week, which almost from beginning to end was told from the perspective of Nathan Lane's deaf son, which was a very bold route to take, and it was astonishing. I loved it. It was, I think, maybe I'm the first. Maybe that they are not the very first example of that, but in the 1980s, of course, this was released by a major Paramount studio, Paramount, and they wanted to appeal to as large a commercial audience as possible. The fact, the choices that they decided to make in terms of the point of view and everything. In the point of view, obviously, was James Leeds in the play, and it would it have been more, I guess, more bold if it had attempted this if it had made the attempt to tell it from Sarah's point of view. That's a very fascinating concept, and here again, that's something that might very well could be explored in a remake. Honestly, because of the fact that Americans typically just don't like to read subtitles, which I understand. I mean, there's certain films, like action films like The Raid, from Indonesia, where there's not a lot of lines and you can just watch the movie and enjoy it. But imagine if Children of the Lesser God came out in 1986 and we did see it from Sarah's point of view, where we didn't hear much, and we would, instead almost feel any, ambient noises or any vibrations or anything of that. I mean, here again, what they achieved on that episode, I thought was groundbreaking. I mean, maybe it had been done before that. I apologize if I don't recall it being done before that. And here we have Marlee Matlin's introduction, where she is a well, we find out later that she is the janitor at the school, and she obviously, you can tell here, has quite the temper. Quite the introduction, and I think that the movie does a beautiful job of finally introducing her character with just the briefest flashes of her in the beginning when she's sleeping in the bed, just the briefest of flashes.
Join us.
Now, as you can see, the gentleman sitting across from Michael Philip Bosco is Oren Dennis, math and social studies teacher, had a much bigger role in the play. As a matter of fact, I mean, what he says right here is literally from the play, and that they both started at the school when they were 5 years old, and both started when they were five. And of course, there's a lot of scenes where he does come in and have dialogue. In the movie, he's eliminated almost entirely, and I think that's perfectly fine because here again we have a 2 hour story here, um, and we have to imagine reimagine the play as if it was made for a cinematic audience because look, audience of cinema and audiences of the theater are very different in terms of how they want stories to be presented when it comes to certain endings or certain themes or certain tones, and it just happens all the time with adaptations. And here I think Mark Medoff and Hesper Anderson, his co-writer, did a remarkable job of, here again, focusing on the core love story, focusing on the main theme of Sarah's anger, Sarah's frustration, and her desire to be cocooned, and not experience the world and not embracing the world, but instead just deciding I'm just going to mop floors for the rest of my life and smoke cigarettes. I mean, yes, it is sad, and we understand what William Hurt's motivation is later as they get to know each other.
You will work.
Music plays a huge part in this film too. I mean, Johann Sebastian Bach uh, utilized brilliantly, I think, here to convey. Even though, I mean, here again, I mentioned the Pointer Sisters before. Oh, yeah, there are songs and references of 80s which will come to play. I mean, by the way, I mean, honestly, I mean, there's very little in this film that reminds me of the 80s. So, I mean, this could be very, contemporary. This could be seen today, I think. And I mean, except maybe the lack of cell phones, of course. But this movie does not remind me of the 1980s. That's the point I was trying to make with the when I mentioned that Paramount had put this out in DVD numerous times, but they have never released a Blu-ray. And one of the lines of DVDs that they put out to promote Children of a Lesser God was the "I love the 80s" line, which sounds so nostalgic. And I just think that it wasn't what the film deserved. I mean, and they were just kind of lumping it in. Um, but I've read Marlee Matlin's biography, and I will talk about it much later. I mean, there is an elephant in the room when it comes to this movie, and we're going to be chasing it out. I assure you. But for now, I mean, you should really just enjoy the performances of both Allison Gomph and William Hurt in this scene, and great use of music. I mean, the Boomerang song will come up numerous times in a very amusing way. I, I've always liked William Hurt. I mean, here again, I mean, Body Heat was a huge film when I was growing up, and now he's of course part of the MCU as I believe his character's name is Captain Ross. Forgive me, Marvel fans, if I got it wrong. Please remind me if I got it wrong in the chat. But he plays like a lieutenant in the military. I forget. I remember he was in The Incredible Hulk, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And Marlee Matlin's book came out a year later. But regardless of what I'll talk about later in terms of Hurt and Matlin's relationship post this movie. The thing is that it's not for this story and this play and this for for the movie ultimately overall, it's almost irrelevant. I mean, there's not a lot of parallels to what I'm going to talk about later, which is not going to be it's not going to go into too much detail. But at the same time, I here again, I want to talk about this film as a film and as an in terms of its adaptation, its reception, everything, the technical details from what best I can do. But here again, I mean, I'm a huge movie buff, but I'm certainly by no means an expert. I do this purely for hoping that other people will discover the film and here again, this is a great love story. This is a great love story for any couples or potential couples. I mean, I think that here again, despite the formulaic aspects, which they're here and they're in practically every love story you can imagine, almost coming from Hollywood. But this has a very unique perspective, especially from Hollywood history, because very few films have focused on the deaf and the deaf community. I mean, we had characters in productions like Johnny Belinda, and the one I grew up watching personally, and I saw perhaps even more than Children of a Lesser God, was The Miracle Worker, directed by Arthur Penn, which is about Helen Keller's struggle to break out of her her world of silence and unable to see at the same time. Remember that Helen Keller was blind and deaf. And of course, it's about Annie Sullivan, played by Anne Bancroft, who comes down to visit Helen Keller and help her understand sign language, help her understand that everything has a name, everything has a meaning, everything has color and structure to it, that there are things that even though she may not be able to see them, they're there. And the breakthrough of that movie is, of course, the story breakthrough is, of course, at the end, which is a very, very famous scene of Helen Keller being taken out to a water pump. And when she touches water, she finally gets it. She finally understands, oh, this is water. It's a thing, and a thing has a name. It's a very, very one of the most powerful scenes in all of cinema. And it's a play that I have seen on the stage as well. So, it's funny. I mean, with these two films, The Miracle Worker and Children of a Lesser God, the fact that I love them so much, I'm really ashamed I never learned ASL. And I know it's never too late to learn. I actually wanted. I mean, I didn't have. I wish I had more time, but I wanted to learn some prior to this commentary. I mean, Marlee Matlin actually, at her website, she has a thing where she teaches sign language, I think on an app, and I would definitely try that out, because, and here I was going to say redo a commentary for a Blu-ray. That would be something that I could do as well. But here again, oh man, I'm so compressed but anyway, I'm getting off some. But the thing is, I mean, I wish I had learned some ASL prior to this commentary, and I do apologize for not, but I wanted to at least, say something at the end in ASL. I mean, it's funny that, I mean, I learned a few signs here and there, maybe not the signs that, I mean, obviously, doing a circular motion on your chest is sorry, obviously, but here again, I never took that step, and I regret that now. But okay, now this is a sequence where we wanted to, I mean, Rhonda Haines and the screenwriters obviously wanted to get an idea of what her world is like, no, with no sound, and this is about as close as it gets, where the music, there is no music, there's this, almost this trinkle, very little noise, but there, we get the idea that she's in the water, she's by herself, she's naked, and and like that she's in a very cold and dark place, a very cold, dark place where she can't stay in for too long, or obviously that's the thing. There are several scenes in this movie that are shot underwater, which beautifully, by the way. I mean, John Seal is an Academy Award-winning cinematographer, and I think this movie, above all else, is just gorgeously filmed from first frame to last by John Seal.
All right. You want to try it? I'll talk to her. Huh? I'll talk to her.
Phil Bosco, as the superintendent of the school, obviously has reservations. He has his own attitude when it comes to Sarah. He has his own, I guess you could say, I mean, he's kind of written off on that record. He doesn't want to deal with it anymore, type of thing. It's not that he doesn't like her, but obviously he feels frustrated as well when it comes to everything that she's gone through, and everything, and what she has decided to how to live. That's one of my favorite Marlee Matlin moments. I mean, and this whole movie is filled with them. But I mean, the imitation of the dog, it gets me every time, and it just this woman is beautiful, intelligent. She has a sense of humor. So what's the deal? What is the deal with this woman? This is what the audience is questioning. Why? Is it because she's scared? Is it not because she's scared? Is it she just wants to be independent? Is it a combination of the two things? Is it more than that? There's a lot to dig. There's a lot to dig to deep with this character. And here again, I mean, I think that by lighting the lighter, she's about to set the scene on fire. Now, the interesting thing is that Marlee Matlin hesitated for the longest time to smoke cigarettes in this movie. Now, I'm not exactly sure of the justification behind this. I'm sure that people can have their own interpretations. Okay, she smoked cigarettes, big deal. I mean, a lot of people did and still do. I mean, we live in a different world now where we rarely ever see like casual smoking like this in mainstream movies, and we can't judge the decision, I guess, because I mean, look, I mean, in the 1950s, I mean, the whole television shows were promoted by cigarette companies. I mean, it was just a hearing, and it was a different world, and I'm not entirely sure the cigarettes are absolutely necessary, but at the same time, at the very least, though, they make us empathize with her even more. Is she aware of the dangers of smoking? Probably. But then again, she's in a very cold, dark place that she doesn't really want to be. She doesn't want to be bothered with. She does, just like, leave me alone. Just leave me alone. I love William Hurt's reaction here. It's just, I mean, the acting in this movie, I think, is superlative from pretty much everybody. I mean, from the big parts down to the small parts. I mean, I think everybody does a equally great job. I mean, they're all believable. They're all wonderful to watch, and wonderful to, just enjoy what they're doing with these characters. Okay, now this is interesting. When I first saw this movie, this film came out, like I said, October 3rd, 1986. And I was 7 years old at the time. Now, I didn't really see the movie in full for a few more years after that because at the time, what my father would do is when he recorded movies off the VHS tapes. I mean, this was before they had copy guards, so he had Children of a Lesser God on one tape, and then immediately after that, he recorded Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Ironically enough, another film from Paramount about a teacher. Ironically enough, I mean, I can't really they don't mention Indiana Jones, but they mention Twisted Sister, and they also mentioned a few other famous people. But Twisted Sister, it's interesting that I realized who they were because of this movie, as well as another 1986 film called Fly of the Navigator, which came out from Disney, which Sarah Jessica Parker said that she went to a rock concert with the Twisted Sister concert and came back with purple hair. When she meets this boy that had been transported from 1978 to 1986. A very interesting sci-fi movie from Disney that is very problematic and could also use, I think, a remake. Um, I mean, he mentioned Princess Di earlier. That's she was huge in the '80s. I mean, for understandable reasons. I mean, bless her heart, what happened to her was tragic and terrible. And I'm just going to throw it out there. I think one of the great cover-ups in history. Such sad. I mean, unlawful killing. All I'm saying is unlawful killing. And so here we have another beautiful shot of the water, this time with Marlee Matlin out there. You know, I mean, whenever I see this movie, I mean, I do want to visit there. I do, and I've never had the opportunity or I guess the time or the motivation to actually go all the way up to Nova Scotia. But every time I see this movie, I just want to visit there and just walk around. You know, maybe visit some of the sites where it was filmed. I was thinking about contacting the school where this was filmed at to see if they celebrate the movie in any way, but I never got around to it. If Paramount hires me for an official commentary, that's something I would do, is actually visit the school. But I work full time in Manhattan. I can only do so much. A lot of this dialogue is from the play. A lot of this is. I mean, here again, they pretty much just drop a few characters, and then in the play they also get married, which is actually, I think, going to be a revelation for many who've only seen the movie but never seen the play, or don't know about the differences and the origins and everything.
I tried to call your mother.
And she immediately goes into a rage when he mentions her mother and triggers her, and it's like, oh no, here we go. Yeah. Matlin does so much in these scenes, so much. It's just extraordinary. Whenever I watch this movie, even though I admire Hurt's performance, it's always Marlee that I'm glued at. Even in over the shoulder shots, I mean, just like there's so much mystery behind this woman, and here again, I think she nails it in every single scene.
Yes? Good. Thanks. Okay, I will meet you. And the girls' dormitory, 8 o'clock. I will whisper your name. Hey, I know that sign. That's the first sign I ever learned.
One of my favorite moments in the movie. And we're going to bring up profanity as a quasi issue later in the movie. I mean, I must say, but I'm not going to say what she said. I mean, you can look it up if you want, but Now, I gotta say, I mean, if I was James Leeds, I wouldn't have taken her out to an Italian restaurant. I mean, that's kind of insulting on its own. I mean, it's like, no, can we? No, no, take her to where she can read the menus. Okay, I mean, this is not. I mean, I can see degrees of confusion. But I mean, if I were her, I would be even more exasperated, to be perfectly honest. Oh, and you can't explain veal now? What's wrong with you? I mean, and here again, I mean, you can see a lot of this in traditional love stories, but I mean, it's all built exceptionally well for this genre. I mean, this is, I think, one of the standouts in film history. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm going to throw that on the table, and that I think that the criticisms that have been lobbied toward them have been minimal, and I think that we can forgive those criticisms, um, just because of how well it was filmed and shot and acted, and here again the music. It's a very inviting movie, despite the odd title, which is a reference to Alfred Lord Tennyson in regards to King Arthur. Um, in the copy of the play, which I happen to have right here, for why is all around us here as if some lesser god had made the world, but had not forced to shape it as he would. From Idols of the King by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Mm. Oh, another thing I'm also ashamed of. I took this copy from my high school department and never never returned it. So, yeah, I should send it back, I guess. Marlee Matlin, like I said, was she was 21 years old when she won the Academy Award for for Best Actress, and she was up against some serious star power. I mean, she was up against Jane Fonda for The Morning After, CC Spacek for Crimes of the Heart, Kathleen Turner, who I mentioned before from Body Heat, from Peggy Sue Got Married. She was nominated for that, and finally Sigourney Weaver for Aliens. And while I say that I'm sure that a lot of people out on the internet would immediately start cheering for Sigourney, let me say, as great as and awesome as she is in Aliens, I would have voted for her for Best Actress for Gorillas in the Mist. To me, that's the film that Sigourney Weaver should have won for. I mean, that Aliens nomination is impressive and surprising. But yeah, but look, I mean, for 1986, oh no, I mean, I would have voted for Marlee Matlin. Don't get me wrong. And the film was up against these four others for Best Picture: Platoon, which the Oliver Stone film about Vietnam War, that was the ultimate winner. Woody Allen's Hannah and Her Sisters, which I have nothing to say about at this time. The Mission, starring Robert De Niro, and finally the Merchant Ivory film A Room with a View, which I haven't seen since 1985, and that's definitely or 1986, and that's definitely one I would like to return to. But I should also do another viewing of Blue Velvet, because I recently got through Twin Peaks seasons 1 and 2, the David Lynch show, and to a lot of people, I think Blue Velvet was probably the best picture of '86 by um, miles, even over Platoon. I mean, but with Children of the Lesser God, I mean, this is arguably the best love story of the year. So, But there again, there's something unique about it in compared to those other films. So William Hurt's character James Leeds, he is determined to break through, determined to understand why she is the way she is, why she has this attitude about.
Not talk like that.
She just mocked Lydia, one of his students that we saw earlier. It's really weird because the students, I mean, of course, they take a back seat to the love story, and I think that there are good, good aspects and bad aspects to that approach. I mean, here again, in a remake, I think there would be I think you could do more with them and fuse them in a bit more. Um, Here again, they were focused on the core love story between James and Sarah, which of course is the heart of the play. Um, it's completely understandable why they went these routes the way they did. But I mean, still, I mean, I love all the scenes with the kids, regardless.
I would like to walk with you.
And once again, Michael Convertino's score is, I mean, I remember buying the CD in the early 90s because I always had an affinity to buy movie soundtracks more than actual albums, mostly because of the variety of music that they provided. But I actually picked up the Children of the Lesser God score on CD, and I don't have a copy of it anymore. But from what I remember, pretty much every inch of music that he composed for the movie is on there. I believe. I could be wrong, but I believe it is all on there. And so here, James Leeds decides to go talk to somebody else about Sarah, and that would be her mother, Mrs. Norman, played by Piper Laurie. Piper Laurie, of course, in 1976 was nominated for Best Actress for Carrie, playing Sissy Spacek's mother, directed by Brian De Palma, based on the Stephen King book. And I mean, she's amazing in that movie. But it's really weird. I haven't seen Carrie a lot. Mostly because as great as I think Piper Laurie is in it, I mean, there's only so much of that character I can take. I mean, and the frustrating thing is, I mean, with Carrie, even though I think it's a good story and it's a well done film, I always wish Carrie had lived at the end. I mean, she got revenge against all these fellow kids, but I really wish she would have survived in some way. I mean, even if she had to go off to, and like, maybe maybe continue that story. I mean, instead of just having her die at the end and then do the jump out of the graveyard, which is another debate into itself. But I've never liked that ending. But Piper Laurie is great, and of course I recently saw her in Twin Peaks, the David Lynch series, and she's still with us at 89 years old. Now, this, of course, is a very much a foreshadowing. I mean, we know this is going to come eventually. I mean, we know that. I mean, even to those who've never seen this movie before, I'm sure at this point are saying, "Oh, we know where we see where this is going." Yeah, Matlin's character is going to reach a breaking point at some. It's going to happen eventually, and here again, though, it's still set up very, very well. You have to set it up. Bottom line, you have to do it. And with actors of this caliber, I think that they do deliver it exceedingly well, where you're still immersed in the story, and you still have a great deal of love and empathy for these characters at this point. And here we are opening a door, opening doors into Sarah's past. Hmm.
Hi. It's true, I'm early today. Don't go. I wanted to talk to you anyway. I want to work with you. I understand that you're scared.
I think it's common knowledge by now that William Hurt and Marlee Matlin had generated a relationship during the making of this movie. And so it clearly shows how much chemistry that they have on screen, which I think is insanely valuable for a movie like this. There is a verisimilitude here, regardless of what happened afterward. Which here again, I will talk about a bit later. But the thing is, individually and as a couple, well, not a couple, but as two actors playing two characters bouncing off each other off the screen, and William Hurt having to sign everything and of course repeat everything that Marlee is saying through ASL for the audience's benefit. It just gels. I mean, I think it gels beautifully well for the story that they're trying to tell. And to me, that ultimately makes this movie a success. And, here again, regardless of, whatever changes that we think might be beneficial. I mean, I certainly have ideas, but I mean, but here again, I mean, I'm also here to have nothing but the utmost respect for the creators. I mean, Mark Medoff, Hesper Anderson, Rhonda Haines, and of course these actors for what they did with this material. And this is unfortunately a very raw backstory, which essentially says that, and she ended up, having sex with a lot of boys without a single word being said. It's very shocking and very devastating. And, and of course, most likely it was, without her consent and without her, necessarily her desire to go in that direction, but it just sort of came about that way. And here she explains all that very, very beautifully. And I don't think this movie is slow in the slightest. I think the pacing here is perfect. Hmm. And for those who didn't get that sign before, that's all you. Yeah, there you go. There's a clarification for you, and it's very, very powerful. Used in this context. Didn't even take her out for a Coke first. Yeah, that's a great line. That's probably delivered well in the play. Well, it's perfectly put in the play. When I read it, I was like, oh wow, I'm glad they included that line. I really am.
No, Sarah. And all the time you were laughing at me. I was thinking, poor little deaf virgin.
We understand where she's coming from. We still get her point of view, even if we don't experience the world the way she's experiences it every second of the way. I mean, what I was going to say. But here again, in a remake, this is something I would develop and work on a bit more. Is let's tell the story from her point of view as much as possible. I think that would be spectacular. I mean, and if Marlee Matlin is willing to produce that type of remake, oh man, that would even be better. That would even be better. This is a rare film that I adore, and that I am still actually cheering for a remake, which I know sounds a little, oh no, not a remake to replace the original movie. No. See, this is a movie that or this is a property that I think could very well use a 20th century, a very fresh 20th century treatment. And here again, from that latest episode that I saw of Only Murders in the Building, the series with Steve Martin and Martin Short and Selena Gomez, all great, by the way. It can be done. I want to see it done that way. I want to see it done where we only see everything from the deaf character's point of view in terms of reading lips, in terms of, hearing practically nothing. It, although we do, quote unquote, feel vibrations and noises. I mean, I wish I could describe it more, but I mean, I'm not an expert in that department, but no, seriously, that very last episode of Only Murders in the Building, watch that episode. Get the Paramount, hire the screenwriters of that episode to do a remake of Children of Lesser God. I think, well, here again, not so much a remake as a brand new adaptation.
You are the most mysterious, beautiful, angry person I have ever met.
And here William Hurt finally breaks down and confesses that he loves her. She's like, well, I don't believe you, but if you seriously mean that, are you going to jump in the water or not? And I love this reaction. Like, yeah, okay. Indeed, what a fellow has to go through. Jumping in a pool to just touch the woman that you've fallen in love with. Yeah, there you go. And here the music overwhelms. We hear their breathing a little bit, but otherwise the music pretty much takes over. And here again, it's oh man, just a luminous score. The lighting, I mean, everything about this movie is just, I think, almost perfect, if not near perfect. And it's astonishing. This was Rhonda Haynes' first film. I mean, she had done a television movie that got a bunch of awards, which is about a father that molests his daughter. But it was a huge with movie with Glenn Close, that it was a huge big deal in 1984. And yeah, she was a perfect pick for this movie, I think. I mean, now, yeah, here's the thing. I mean, there are scenes when the characters are underwater. They're underwater for a while. I mean, well, and the interesting thing is that, I mean, in the play, it does say that he used to be in the Peace Corps. James Leeds used to be in the Peace Corps. You know, I served in the Navy, and it takes a lot to stay underwater for long periods of times, and they take it to the limit. They take it to the limit, but hey, I mean, just for the shot, it's worth it. Great storytelling here. I mean, the superintendent sees them coming out all wet, lingering wet, and then you see the shoe on the table. It takes a moment, but James Leeds realizes it's there. It's like, oh boy.
Something of a poker player, so I've heard. Are you a complicated? No, not really. Tic-tac-toe is my game. So much the better, huh? Well, thanks for coming in.
Earlier, we saw another teacher, Catherine Oakes, I believe her name was, or Miss Oakes, excuse me. She had red hair, and that actress, her name is E. Catherine Kerr, and she said she basically told them in ASL, see you all later. And we will see her later. And the thing is, there's a great connection I want to make, because she was in another movie with Philip Bosco a year after that. But anyway, so this, of course, is the legendary 1959 comedy Some Like It Hot, directed by Billy Wilder, starring Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis, and the legendary Marilyn Monroe. And it's considered by many to be the greatest comedy of all time in film history. And I mean, comedy is also all subjective, and I'm not sure if I quite agree with that, but it is most definitely one of the funniest and one of the greatest. Um, and I got to admit, I mean, if there was a movie showing Some Like It Hot, I would probably bring my date there too. I mean, it has romantic aspects to it, despite the laugh out loud humor. They're about to hold hands. Yeah, here we go. They're holding hands. Oh boy. And I love how the in terms of the editing, how they align the scene from the movie with what these characters are going through. It fits like a glove, even even though they're completely different films and completely different eras. You know, it's weird. When I was growing up, I mean, of course, this film has an R rating, and you know, it's a film for adults for the most part. Look, I first saw this movie probably when I was 7 or 8 years old, and you know, I did not understand what the characters were doing at that time necessarily. I mean, it took several viewings, and I mean, I think I ultimately became a fan of this movie when I was a teenager. And the thing is, there's not really sex scenes so much as love scenes. I consider the scenes in I mean, the nudity is it's very uh, you know, very little nudity, which I think is appropriate. I mean, for this story, I mean, I mean, there's they keep everything very very subdued, but they get the point across. We see them both in bed. You know, they just made had sex for the first time. Maybe, I mean, who knows if they? I don't know if they could pull it off in the swimming pool. That's a question mark. But you know, they finally gotten together. They finally consummated their feelings and their attraction to one another, and they talk about, you know, broken hearts, past relationships, and
Hurt from other people. You never hurt from other people. That's not true. Sir, I know people. I know.
and I want to also mention that, you know, of course, you know, I don't want people watching this movie to try to draw parallels to the real life romance that occurred between William Hurt and Matlin after this movie. I mean, I don't think that's fair. I mean, it's you know, it's very true that according to Matlin's book, you know, she went through periods of drug use and physical and psychological abuse on William Hurt's part. I mean, I had to say it. I had to throw it out there, and I guess that now was the time to do it. I mean, might as well just get it out of the way. You know, I mean, ever since movies first began, I mean, when people go see love stories, they love the idea of the actors actually falling in love when they're actually doing the movie, and that's happened many times. I mean, even if I mean, you know, even if there's marriages or divorces or, you know, whether it ends good or bad or anything in between, I mean, you know, it does happen. I mean,
No, say it out loud. Watch my lips. Asshole.
okay,
Asshole. Asshole. Great. Asshole. Good. It was still your fault.
we'll talk about this character a little later too, but that's a very very funny scene. Um, but look, it's happened many times before that, you know, during films, people will, you know, fall in love, they have affairs, you know, it just does happen. And usually it builds. Like, okay, one of my favorite romantic comedies is The Cutting Edge, where both the actors spent 6 months learning to ice skate and skating on rinks for 6 months. That their chemistry built to a point where it was exploding on the screen. Romance in the Stone is one of my favorite movies from the 1980s. And yes, Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner had an affair while he was separated from his partner at the moment, but that detail is irrelevant to the film itself. The point is there chemistry? Yes, there is chemistry. And this film certainly benefits from the chemistry of Marlee Matlin and William Hurt at this time in 1986. Another 1986 film, which is actually, it's funny, my three favorite films from 1986 are this, David Seltzer's Lucas, and David Cronenberg's The Fly. And David Cronenberg's The Fly is here again another film which had a real life couple playing a real life couple on screen, and that of course was Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. And that's one of my favorite horror films, a great tragedy on its own. I mean, believe me, I scanned 1986 pretty well. Those are the three films that I think are my three favorites of the year. The funny thing is that 1986 was also the year that I went to the movie theater for the very first time when I saw the Don Bluth animated film An American Tail, which it was about an immigrant mouse, and I still remember to this day all the mice at the end singing, there are no cats in America and all the streets are filled with cheese. But that was my introduction to cinemas and theatrical showings. I mean, that was my introduction to it all. But of course, I didn't see Children of the Lesser God in its entirety until probably the early 90s, I would make a guess, when my father recorded it from the Paramount VHS tape. It's funny, if I was doing this commentary in 1990, Paramount would probably get on my ass about what I just said. But okay, now I want to say, we need to say something about the language in this movie, because now, look, I served 8 years in the military. I've cursed for as long as I can remember. It's not the cursing itself that bothers me. It's how it's utilized. This character that we meet, where, James tells him, I mean, you want to call me an asshole, say it. And of course he does say it in sign language. Here again, I'm trying to not, I don't want to copy anything. I'm trying not to upset anybody. So I'm being very careful with not imitating, how they present the ASL. But my whole thing is that character is merely just a punchline. He's a profanity punchline. I wish that character had a bit more development in it in this story. I mean, I know that sounds minor because he's a minor character, but that's the thing. I mean, it's funny that he likes to curse. I mean, I wish there was more to him than that. Or at the same time, I mean, get rid of the character. It's nothing against the actor. I think that I don't like it when films tend to be consciously using profanity as a low way to garner a laugh, or a low or a cheap way to get a reaction that we don't really need. I think that there are profanities in this movie that are utilized well, believe it or not. But here again, I didn't think that character was altogether necessary. Okay, there is E. Catherine Kerr as Miss Oakes, standing next to Philip Bosco. Approximately 1 year later, I had to turn down the volume. Approximately 1 year after this film came out, TriStar put out a film called Suspect with Dennis Quaid and Cher. Cher plays a public defender, and Dennis Quaid plays a lobbyist. And Cher has to defend a homeless veteran who is deaf and dumb, played by Liam Neeson. And Liam Neeson, who plays the title role, has no lines of dialogue whatsoever. It's an amazing early performance from Liam Neeson, if you ever get a chance to see it. E. Catherine Kerr plays a senator in that movie who Dennis Quaid sleeps with to garner votes. And Philip Bosco plays the current attorney general, who I'm not going to give anything away because it is a murder mystery, and I like to keep everything about the mystery, to leave everything up to you. But it's an extremely underrated courtroom thriller, one of my favorites from the '80s and from '87. That time in time in film history. And here again, it doesn't seem to be talked about as much. But they're both in that movie in separate scenes, and it's interesting that the lead character, of course, is deaf at the same time. Yeah, filmed and set in Washington D.C. Highly recommend you check out Suspect. Of course, the climax of this scene is where Marlee Matlin, of course, gets seriously intimidated by the fact that, I mean, we understand what James Leeds is doing as a teacher. He wants his students to speak. He wants them to blossom into the world, and she's not having that. At least not right now, and she is understandably intimidated that he's going to forcibly make her blossom, I guess you could say, and get out of her world, which he is here again very comfortable in. But of course, as an audience, of course, we want her to break through because we want her to be happy. We want her to be happy and successful. And we want all the best for these characters. I mean, by this time, we care about them that much. And of course, here's where she's very upset and she explodes by throwing the brush, and it hits the mirror, and it very nearly hits a student and their parent. And this, of course, is very alarming. And Philip Bosco proceeds to chew out James to let him know that, hey, look. Here again, it's all about context. I think the language in this scene is necessary as opposed to the language of the other character who here again I wish had more development rather than just being a comic punchline. Uh, Philip Bosco is so good in this movie that I just think, I mean, if there was another nomination this movie could have helped, it would have been for Best Supporting Actor for him, because he Philip Bosco, very long distinguished career on the stage and screen, and you know he's no longer with us, obviously, and I don't know. This one seemed like as right a time as any for him to have gotten a nomination from the Academy. It just seemed like the right time for him. Now, in the play, I've mentioned before that they are in fact very much married. I mean, by the time the play is over, now it still has a lot of the same words and it still has a lot of the same themes. Um, but at the same time, it goes to different places almost. I mean, here again, we drop a few characters, we streamline everything into this, kind of traditional but not really love story made for a major Hollywood studio, and you know, I think it deserved everything it got in terms of its accolades. Okay, now in the play, it very much emphasizes this too. This whole idea that he starts making decisions for her and speaking for her. It's like, no, 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 you don't do that. I love how Marley stands her ground here. Mhm. And I've said this before. In a remake, we could expand upon this. We could have them be married in the remake. We can do. I mean, we can do whatever we want. I mean, sort of like in this scene where William Hurt asks Marley Matlin. I mean, what do you want? Okay. I mean, we can do whatever you want here. And that's why I would say, okay, if Paramount's going to do a remake, you know, if we can get Marley on board, which would be awesome. I mean, this is just a pipe dream, but I guess at this point. But if a remake were to happen and she were the producer, um, or even more than that, um, what could we do with this play? To what could we do? I mean, what other direction can we take? Because I do think that there's so much in this material that it could be used to a 21st century advantage, where we don't have to rely on the past. We can take things in a new and bold and very independent direction. um and here again, hire the writers from that seventh episode of Only Murders in the Building, and you will see exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, it was just posted last Tuesday on Hulu. Check out that show on Hulu. It's awesome. And here we have, there's a little bit of montage in this movie, not a lot. I'm actually very glad that this movie doesn't overdose on montage pills. I guess I like to say, but I mean, I like the cat, even though we see very little of the cat. But I mean, there are different ways that we can tell the story, and I would not want to take the project up. I mean, just because, or the idea up, just because. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to begin in terms of writing it. I want somebody else to do it, and I think that those writers from that seventh episode of Only Murders in the Building would be as good as it gets for this. But anyway, I won't mention that again. Yeah, I mean, here he calls him Dick Brain, and later he calls him Fuck Face. I mean, look, I mean, in the moment it's funny, and it's like, okay. I mean, I just, here again, I wish there was more to that character than just a profanity. I think that's a very legitimate criticism. I honestly do. Arnold Schwarzenegger, fine actor, fine actor. Oh yes, the fact that William Hurt said that, it makes it all the more better for some reason. I don't know. They never made a movie together. I don't think William Hurt and Arnold. I don't think they ever did. Okay, we should mention the Johnny character. Okay, so there. Okay, this class has six. God, I mean, we've already like over halfway through the movie, and we've only had like a handful of classroom scenes. But yeah, I mean, there's not too many classroom scenes in the long run. But yeah, there's this character, Johnny, who doesn't say a word. He doesn't seem, you know, interested at all in the classroom. And for the longest time, especially when I was a kid, I was so frustrated that this kid didn't do anything except sit there and stare at them as if they were aliens. Now, look, here again, some students, I mean, unfortunately, I do believe that there are some cases where you cannot break through to them, and unfortunately I think this is true. I mean, there's the very last scene with that character, that Johnny character. I think it emphasizes the point that the filmmakers are making, in that, look, we can't break through to every student. I mean, it's sad, it's a shame, and Sarah is kind of a reflection of that, where here again, I mean, she struggled a lot as a teenager, and she got through so much to be where she is, and she's as comfortable as she can possibly can be at that moment. you know and when it's being shaken up by this teacher, it just, it causes lava bursts, which we will see very, very soon. Now, okay, this is a very, very, very amusing card scene sequence, where of course, they're kind of kidding with her a bit to see, I mean, if she's really up to playing this game, just because they played it 1,000 times. And it's very, very funny. But one of the William Hurt allegedly, and I hate using that word, okay, because I do believe Marley 100% of what she said in her book, that William Hurt actually said to her in the limo when after she had won the Oscar, you really think you deserve that when other actors have worked their entire lives to get it, and here you are, you come out of nowhere. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not paraphrasing. I mean, but according to her book, this is exactly what he said, which was very demeaning, and very harsh, and I guess if I was in the moment, I would have been like, "Well, Bill, would you say the same thing uh, to Patty Duke in The Miracle Worker? Would you say the same thing to Tatum O'Neal in Paper Moon? Would you say the same thing to Audrey Hepburn for Robin Holiday, which was her very first film, by the way? It's completely unfair, very, very harsh. And here again, there's a lot of things that Marley says in her book about William Hurt that I don't like, and of course it makes me look negatively on Hurt. But at the same time, it doesn't affect his performance in this movie. Whatever the facts as they are, they don't affect William Hurt's performance in this movie. Okay. After the movie, he apparently lived up to his last name, which is very, very sad. But here again, when you watch this movie, at least when I do, I don't think of William Hurt post 1986. I think of William Hurt in the moment here, which he certainly wasn't perfect at that time either. But I mean, especially when you read Marley's book and you understand how it just fell apart afterward in the most tragic and unfortunate and sad ways. But it's a very rough book to read, I do warn you. But if you're a Matlin fan like me, you have to read it. Do I understand his desire to her wanting to at the very least say his name when they're making love? Sure. I can totally understand that. I mean, we don't hate his character, even though he does some. I mean, I guess you could say, I mean, disrespectful things that you kind of wish, because I mean, going back a scene with that scene with Philip Bosco when he actually confesses that he loves her, but also at the same time says she's going to move out without officially checking with her first and getting her idea. When it comes to that idea, he does speak for her, which of course is frustrating. You know, we know it. We see it for ourselves, and you're like, okay, yeah, let let, let her be her, but at the same time, don't Okay, this was all in the play too. I mean, despite the fact, I mean, most of the play is actually set in Leeds's classroom. Um, this whole thing with when they're in the house, and here again, because it's all from memory. Um, they came over and they were watching the TV, and the phone starts ringing, all these loud noises. Um, And of course, Marley is, cooking without a care in the world, while James is dealing with all of these noises, a cornucopia of noises, essentially. Fire a bazooka through the window. That's always been one of my favorite lines from this movie. And here again, Oren is a much more significant character in the play, and here we barely meet him and we barely hear from him, but he's there. I mean, they don't get rid of him entirely. Thank God for small favors. Exactly. So, all right. So going back to Matlin's book and everything that came out after the making of this movie, um, the thing is when whatever real life details I've absorbed about these actors, the bottom line is it doesn't affect my viewing of the movie, both as a piece of art and as I mean, because look, I mean, if you want to draw parallels to real life, I mean, I think it would be a fruitless and utterly pointless endeavor, especially for this case. I just Hurt has been in enough movies where I do respect him as an actor, and I think that he, has done some extraordinary things. Although I will say he's in my least favorite Jane Eyre adaptation. Just throwing that out there. I mean, I've watched every single Jane Eyre adaptation, and I've loved and read that book many, many times over the years. And he was without a doubt, maybe not the worst choice to play Edward Rochester, but that film was awful. It was awful, and it was without a doubt the worst of the Jane Eyre adaptations, if you ask me. Now, I'm glad we've finally come to this scene because here's a personal story. I was growing up in Northern Virginia, and there was a radio station. For the life of me, I cannot remember the station or the DJs, but they did something in the morning called Dave and Beverly's Drive-In. I mean, yeah, Dave and Beverly outside a radio station in Northern Virginia or DC in the late 80s, early 90s. But anyway, or mid 90s. But they did a show on weekday mornings called Dave and Beverly's Drive-In, where they would play a line from a movie on the radio station and on the air, basically, and people will have to call in and identify the movie, and they would win prizes. Well, it took me many, many attempts, okay, but I mean, I finally was able to win because of Children of a Lesser God, and it was because of that line. Unfortunately, I just missed it, where he says, "Well, now I sound like that I'm blaming you for me not being able to listen to music." That is the line that they used on the drive-in show that morning in 1996, and I remember that for sure because it was right after Marlee Matlin had her first child. And I remember that because of the fact that they asked me after I got it right, after numerous attempts of calling to win this contest. Um, Dave asked me if I was a William Hurt fan, and I said, "Well, yes, I am a William Hurt fan, but I love this movie because of Marlee Matlin." That is exactly what I said, and that's when Beverly mentioned, "Oh, yeah, she just had a baby." So this was definitely in 1996, literally right after Marlee Matlin had her first child. And I wish I had a recording of it. For the life of me, I mean, and oh, what did I win? I won an afternoon of maid service, which take that what you will. I mean, I won something, but look, just the fact that I finally got through and won, that was all I cared about. I didn't really care about the maid service, and I'm glad I won for a movie like Children of a Lesser God because it is truly one of my favorites of the 1980s. And here, like I said, he has to turn it off because he so wishes he could share everything with Sarah. And of course, we realize, oh no, that he can't share music. And of course, I love how she challenges him. Okay, describe the music for me. Take a shot. Let's try something here. Let's try something. Let's see what we can accomplish. Even if she cannot hear the music, can he interpret the music? And here again, it goes back to the student that he has in his class, Johnny, that no matter what he says, no matter how hard he tries, he cannot break through to him. And but here she is willing to take a chance. She's willing to make a leap. to understand and to actually expand her horizons, and here again, learn what she can learn. Earlier, of course, when there's dancing, I mean, she mentions that she can feel the vibrations through her nose, which, is funny, but of course, William Hurt kind of like blows it off. It's like, yeah. I mean, it's unlike when Lydia has her hands on the actual machine making the music. If she put her hands on the machine, of course, she could only feel the different. I mean, she might detect. I mean, I would imagine she would detect subtle differences in the notes, but oh man, I mean, and look, credit where credit is due. William Hurt plays this character with so much conviction and warmth that, I mean, every time I see him in this film, I do applaud him for what he did, what he contributed. And here again, I mean, he is very believable as a speech therapist. Very, very believable. Just as Cher is very believable as a public defender in the movie Suspect. I mean, here again, I mean, I completely buy these actors playing these characters. And that's why I still admire his work in 1980s movies, particularly 1980s movies. But I will say that what I do intend to do is, Kino Lorber put out a Blu-ray of Rhonda Haynes's The Doctor, which came out in 1991, and probably has William Hurt's best performance on film. I mean, I've seen it before. It's excellent. It's beyond excellent. It's a genuinely great drama. Um, I can't say I love it more than this, but I mean, William Hurt is, I think it gives the performance I never forgot that performance, and that I'm saying of all the stuff he did. I mean, but then again, I also like The Incredible Hulk and another movie that he did with Renee Zellweger and Meryl Streep called One True Thing, where he played a literary professor. Um, I could watch him in anything, but I mean, if I was going to throw out there what I think is prime William Hurt, the best of his performances by far is probably in The Doctor, which here again is from the same director, Rhonda Haynes, and she did that 5 years after Children of a Lesser God in 1991. And I need water. Like I said, if anybody is actually out there listening, feel free to comment. You know, uh, I'm currently at the hour and 23-minute mark, approximately. If anybody wants to jump in really late, but yeah, I'm at the 1 hour 23-minute mark on the copy over at Amazon Prime. If you go to that link. The more I'm watching this, I really wish I had learned ASL prior to doing this commentary. I really wish I did, because it really would have gone the extra mile. But I mean, I want to learn French. I mean, I mean, there's other things I need to do and want to do, and like, oh man, I mean, but I mean, the truth is, I'm so much of a fan of this movie that I should know ASL by now. I will say that. But interestingly enough, the actress playing Marianne Lesser is a woman by the name of Linda Bove, and she was in Sesame Street. She actually, well, I mean, forgive me, I'm gonna have to break my commentary. I hate doing this when I have to do this, but I want to get this right, so I might as well get it done this way. But she was on Sesame Street for the longest time, and she is very much deaf in real life. Yeah, she was on Sesame Street from 1971 to 2002, where she played a fictional character of herself, and here she is in Children of a Lesser God. Yeah, one of my other favorite movies called The Goodbye Girl. For the longest time, I forgot that it had the Mad Painter as Richard Dreyfuss's Richard the Third director. You know, I grew up watching Sesame Street and Mister Rogers and all those movies, and so, but it took me years to finally catch on. I was like, oh, that's who she is. So, yeah, that's Linda Bove playing Marianne Lesser in Children of the Lesser God. Very quick scene, but here again, it leads to the climax of this movie, which is very powerful and very emotional. And it still gets to me after all these years. I mean, this is where, of course, as Piper Laurie, who plays Marlee's mother earlier in the film, foreshadowed, which is, um, you know, that when she is pushed to the point where she is going to speak, that it's going to look awful and it's going to sound awful, and we will understand completely why. Um, it's the last piece of the puzzle that has to be put in terms of revealing who she is, and but here again, we want her to succeed. We want her to achieve whatever she wants. And I mean, actually, I'm going to even throw it out there. Even if it's going to not be with James Leeds, okay? I mean, here again, abiding by the rules of traditional love stories and formulas, that okay, they have to break up and they have to get back together. That's what Children of the Lesser God does. But here again, because of the uniqueness of the situation and because how complex these characters are, I mean, it works beautifully, and it's hard to complain even about the formula or even about the familiar tropes. She has to explain all of this through ASL. She is doing everything she possibly can not to give in to his, clearly devoted demand to have her speak, to say one word. I mean, earlier when he wanted one sound from Glenn, I never thought about, how what the sound was necessarily, just the fact that he made a sound. That's the whole point of the scene. The subtitles on Amazon Prime, who I have to call out here because they're really going to screw something up in this key scene. I mean, when I finally saw the subtitles on this, I mean, it said it said that he made a noise like twee, TWEEH. And I was thinking, was he trying to say Twisted Sister? So admittedly, I mean, and like I said, if I mean, this movie needs a Blu-ray. The subtitles are absolutely essential and so important. And I need to call out Amazon Prime on this because here again, I'm assuming everybody has seen Children of Lesser God, so it's going to be no spoiler at this point that she actually does speak, and she has only four lines of dialogue essentially, and Amazon Prime completely screwed them up in the subtitles. Um, it's oh my, it's so frustrating. I mean, but here again, I mean, I've seen it many times before with other films where the subtitles are just clearly off. And here again, I mean, this is something that needs to be a focus on for when if this ever gets a Blu-ray. Which here again, I am rooting for Paramount to do the right thing and actually get a Blu-ray of this out there with bonus features. Not necessarily this commentary, but just something, something to enliven and appreciate the movie for what it is, which is a terrific play adaptation, a terrific play adaptation, basically. Now, I mean, there is a long monologue that she does on film here, as she does uh, in the play. And they both have the same idea that, we can never be joined because of the fact we are simply in two different worlds. that, I don't want to break out. I know you want me to break out, but I can't. I mean, just watch. I mean, this is this is one of those moments where I just feel the need to shut up and just let Marlee Matlin just deliver, because that's what makes this. Ultimately, I think that her performance is what makes this movie, regardless of any flaws, regardless of what she detailed in the book. It goes beyond, as somebody who has appreciated this movie ever since its release, pretty much. You know, I want to see it in the best possible way, and I want as many people as possible to see it. But here again, unfortunately, because of the fact that it is not talked about again, and and here again, I know that the relationship between Marlee Matlin and William Hurt kind of tainted this movie, I guess, to a certain extent, but it shouldn't have to. I'll say it again. I love Marlee Matlin. What happened to her was horrible. What William Hurt did was wrong. But here again, I don't think this movie should suffer because of those facts. I don't think the movie should suffer at all. And least of all, I'm not even telling people, hey, hate on William Hurt in this movie. No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is appreciate his performance. Appreciate his performance, everything he does, everything he brings to the table here, and just forget. Look at this movie as if we don't know anything about what the actors went through. And I understand that doing a commentary or something like this, it's almost like, well, it's the elephant in the room. I am now chasing that elephant out because I feel that it's important that, look, if you want to read Marlee Matlin's book, please do. It's a great book. It's a great read. It's called I'll Scream Later, which I have a copy of. And I read it when it first came out. This is actually my copy from 2009. And, I was very much surprised and shocked by all of this. But at the same time, I appreciated her coming out and actually saying everything that she said. I love it and I appreciate it. And it just made me, love her more as an actress, period. And here again, it didn't necessarily put me off of William Hurt films. I'm not a fan of The Big Chill, but it's not because of William Hurt. I just don't. I honestly don't care for any of those people. That's here again. That's just one example. I'll watch Body Heat again. I'll watch The Doctor. I'll watch One True Thing. There are many William Hurt movies that I will watch, and it will not. And whatever happened between them will not, affect me watching him perform on screen, is what I'm saying. And he's amazing. He's amazing here as with the rest of the film. We see his frustration reach a boiling point and everything. Now, here's the big moment. Here's the moment where where Matlin finally breaks down and actually literally screams these words. And if you're watching the Amazon Prime version, don't look at the subtitles. The words are, "Here you go, hear my words, hear my voice. Ah, you want more than that? I'm going to scream." Very devastating and very hard to hear, and very hard to hear, but for all the reasons in the world. It is it reminds me of Richard Gere in An Officer and a Gentleman when he finally breaks down to Sergeant Foley and is honest with him for the first time when he says, "I got nowhere else to go." That's a rare moment in cinema that matches that moment in Children of a Lesser God when Marlee Matlin says those words that I said earlier, which here again, Amazon Prime completely screwed up in the subtitles, and I had to throw that out there. I want Paramount to do a Blu-ray of this so badly, but yeah, I mean, those words are very, very important, and they sum up everything. They sum up everything that this character has endured, and everything that we love about this character and want for this character. And it's devastating. I mean, it's a truly devastating moment. And man, I mean, no matter what you think of the Academy or their shows, I'm not going to go too much in detail on my personal feelings. But look, I mean, I think she was the right choice that year. I honestly do. I mean, with all due love and respect to the other actresses who I named, I mean, here again, I would have voted for Sigourney Weaver for Gorillas in the Mist. And here again, I like the fact that William Hurt was nominated. I mean, it is impressive. But here again, I also have this. I'll say one thing. I'll say one criticism of the Academy, that I don't think that actors or anybody, I mean, directors, actors, whoever they are, whatever they're nominated for, I don't think that they should get the award again. I think that I think that they should leave it to other people, particularly in the acting and directing categories, to give the options and the nominations over to, because there's so many actors now. There's so many people performing. It's like, I mean, and there's been a lot of people that have not won awards because of the fact that maybe, too much has been thrown on certain people at certain times. I'm not taking anything away from William Hurt. I'm just saying that, I mean, I can see why he got the nomination, and I'm glad he got the nomination. But at the same time, I wouldn't have even considered him right after he won for Kiss of the Spider Woman. I mean, to me, it's just let's bring in some other actors to applaud. And guess what? Marlee Matlin is one of those actors. I mean, and she proves herself so much. But Piper Laurie, she was also nominated. She was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for this film as Sarah Norman's mother, and she is equally wonderful. I mean, all these scenes that she finally gets to share with Marlee Matlin are wonderful. They're just so well done. These actors are, they're such, to me, I mean, they're all marquee in nature, that they take this material very seriously and very respectfully. Um, and I have all the love and admiration for them for doing that. I mean, this is a play that, I mean, that you want to get the themes right, and you want to get the characters right. And that's what I'm saying, is that I said it before. I think I would love to see a remake of Children of Lesser God, despite the fact I love this movie the way it is. I want to see it done in a moderately different way. But here again, I think that other people could think of better suggestions. I mean, I mean, like who I mentioned before. So, but it is very comforting. Obviously, it's very comforting to see a mother and daughter reconnect after so long. I mean, considering the fact, of course, as an audience, we want James and Sarah to be together. I mean, and that's the thing. That's what movie audiences want. Movie audiences didn't. I mean, I don't think they would have accepted a tragic ending, or an ending where these characters do not get together at the end. I don't think that they would have accepted that. I think that I honestly think that. But here again, I think also that there is possibly a way you can do it with subtitles. You can do it with minimal sound, minimal noise. Here again, getting that deaf perspective as much as humanly possible. I think it's possible. I mean, after seeing that one episode of Only Murders in the Building, I am now convinced that it can be done. And here again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. It probably it probably could have been done in 86, but here again, from a studio system standpoint, this is how Children of the Lesser God is going to look in 1986, regardless of, because here again, it's a movie, it's not a play. Yes, it is based on a play. And yes, the material is very, very strong and it opens itself so much to cinematic possibilities. But here again, I think that we can have different interpretations and I think we can have different perspectives and different moments and different, here again, I want to see a remake that's actually very, very different from this 86 movie. I would love to see that. And here again, I was mentioning before, like it really does push the length of time that these characters are underwater. But here again, that is such a minute complaint, such a minute complaint. The lighting in these pool scenes, I mean, here again, oh man, so astonishing. And of course, he can't listen and enjoy the music even more so when she's gone because it just reminds him of her in every way. And here again, I applaud William Hurt for his performance. I really, really do. Now we're pretty much entering into yeah, we're pretty much entering the third act here, the final act of the movie, where we wonder as an audience, are they going to get back together? Are they going to reconcile? Are they going to consummate their love once and for all, and give us the hope that they stay together? I mean, that's what we want as an audience. We want them to succeed and we want them to be together, but at the same time, we don't want her independence to be sacrificed. We don't want her to feel pushed or intimidated. We want her to be safe and secure and happy. Oh God, Marlee Matlin, so beautiful. And here's a scene that I alluded to before where, by this time he's able to connect to all of his students. They all love him except for Johnny. Johnny was the one that he just couldn't break through to. Skull. I should have looked that magazine up and see if it was real. I mean, it probably is not, but I mean, I'd like to think there is a magazine out there called Skull. I'd really love to think that. But here again, I mean, as a kid or when I was growing up, I always felt disappointed. Like, why the hell did he not connect to Johnny? Why was Johnny so stubborn? We learn nothing about Johnny in all of those scenes. I mean, here again, maybe he just he didn't want to try regardless. He will never know Johnny's story. And I mean, is that necessary for this movie? I mean the love story has to be consummated. That's the primary story. But I can't help but think, could we have gotten like just an addendum with these students, a little bit more than just them dancing to the Pointer Sisters at the school dance. Look, here again, frustratingly, I really wish that the students were given a bit more, just a bit more. I mean, it would have made the movie longer, and we could have minimized the montages a bit more. And I think, but here again, and I'm not even trying to make suggestions for a remake were going to happen. Okay, don't listen to me. Okay, I'm just saying, for this movie, I mean, there are little things they probably could have done, but here again, my job is not. I mean, I want people to watch this movie, and the thing is, I mean, everything that I'm saying in terms of, yeah, maybe this could work or maybe that could work. It's just, don't listen to me. I don't know. And William Hurt, maybe a little surprisingly, decides to not bother her. He walks away, which I mean is a very was obviously a very very tough choice on his. I mean, wow, he's finally found her after he's looked all over. He's finally found her, and yet he cannot go to her. He cannot do it. He wants to respect her. He loves her that much that he wants to respect whatever she wants to do without him interfering or bothering her. And of course, we realize when she does return, I mean, it's very clear that she's been thinking of James and that she misses him and that she's been extremely lonely. And so, of course, now as an audience, okay, oh, they have to come together. They have to come together. I mean, and here again, I am not thinking of any ideas in terms of changing the ending or doing anything radical for any kind of remake. I am just merely saying that there are many, many ways and many different interpretations that you could work with this story. And I would like to see what a 2020, say a movie in 2023 would look like if this were remade. I would love to see it. And particularly if Marlee Matlin was producing. You know what? I can make a perfect comparison. I adore the 1994 version of Little Women, which of course was written by Robin Swicord and directed by Gillian Anderson. And that had there was a new Little Women that just came out a few years ago with with Robin Swicord and the original producers joining forces again. But here again, adding to the original film in indirect ways while telling the story in a completely different fashion. And I loved it for that. And that's what I want to see. I want to see like that would be the only connection between the two movies is that there's some people that from the first film that will join together with new minds and new perspectives and fresh perspectives and create something that I think could be just as powerful today. I mean, I can't see them putting the Pointer Sisters in. Okay, I mean, look, I like the Pointer Sisters. Okay, I like the Pointer Sisters as much as I like Twisted Sister. Oddly enough, here we are at the final dance, and it's like, uh, yeah, like I mean, he obviously liked the girl student from before. Even though I remember when he touched his hair, she didn't look like she didn't exactly want her hair touched at that moment. but Glenn is having a ball. He's jamming. I mean, and you know what? That's wonderful. I mean, it's just enough to see that the students, they had a good year. They had a good year. They had a good teacher. But here again, I mean, I think more could have been done with them. I really honestly think that more could have been done with them. Yeah, here we go. William, yeah, who I mentioned before. I wish there was more to him, especially than just a walking profanity punchline. That's all I'm saying. When I was a kid, I thought he said butt face, but in reality, according to Amazon Prime, he says fuck face. So I guess it's fuck face then. But yeah, here we have most of the students back together as we say goodbye to them, and the movie is about to conclude. I've, yeah, this is the Pointer Sisters "Jump for My Love," which was obviously a big hit in the mid '80s. I mean, as was Prince, Journey, Cyndi Lauper, a lot of singers who I have run into on my years, in soundtracks and everything. They didn't put out an album with the songs from this movie. They didn't put out like an original soundtrack like Boomerang Rang or the Pointer Sisters Jump for My Love. They just put out the score, which here again, I think the score is magnificent. I mean, I think it's powerful. I think it's emotional, and this was pretty much Michael Convertino's very first score for a movie. I mean, I think the same year he did like Hollywood Hot Tub Vixens, or I know I butchered that name, but it was some B movie, some teen B movie, or something like that. But this was his first legitimate studio effort, and to come out of the gate with a score like this, oh man! I mean, here again, would Bill have complained if Michael Convertino won the Oscar for this and say, "Oh well, yeah, and I know I hate to go back to that. I hate to go back to that, but let me just say for the final time, okay? Look, William Hurt, according to Marlee Matlin's book, did some horrible things. And I'm not defending him. I'm not defending not a shred of it. I mean, Marlee Matlin was a victim of not only drug abuse, but also of physical and psychological abuse. And it's horrible. It's just, reading that book, it's a very, very tough read. But here again, with this movie, in this particular case, I can watch the movie and love the movie and enjoy the movie. And on top of that, his performance without even thinking of Matlin's book. And I love Matlin's book. I said it before and I'll say it again. That's why, I mean, the interesting thing is that I showed this movie to my lady friend earlier today, about 10 hours before. And I didn't want to mention anything about William Hurt and Marlee Matlin's relationship, as discussed in the book, in case she didn't know. I just kept it in the dark because I wanted her to appreciate the movie and enjoy the movie for what it is without alluding to their real life relationship. And she loved William Hurt in this as much as Matt. Here again, and the movie isn't perfect. The movie isn't perfect by any means, but I mean, the performances, the music, the direction, the writing, the sign language, everything, all that stuff, I think makes it a beautiful whole. Whatever tiny holes it might have in it. I mean, here again, I complained about formula. I complained about profanity. I complained about, tiny little things that in every single way do not affect this film in terms of the quality, in terms of the presentation, in terms of everything seen on camera, everything heard, everything felt. It still delivers as a love story. It still delivers as a very unique and passionate love story between a teacher of the deaf and a woman who will not break out of her prison or not be forced out. And she's going through so much, and she's been through so much, and she's struggled all the way through it. And she wants to ensure that this man will respect everything she wants to do, will support everything she wants to do. And I think that's very, very clearly conveyed. And here we have the very, very final shot, which is just, them right next to the water, colored lights all around them, not overpowering the scene, with the colors, but, they add a beautiful background to what I think is a very, very romantic moment. And they finally join and accept each other. And here again, in the play, they had actually gotten married. And by the end of the movie, even though we went through the same monologue and went through all the same, similar ticks and different ticks in terms of the relationship and the development and what came in to crack that relationship. But it all comes down to very, very well between a love story between these two people. William Hurt and Marlee Matlin are extraordinary. And here again, I adore Rhonda Haynes in how she presented this story which here again, for audiences in 1986, I think this is about as ideal as it gets. But then again, I've said it before, I would like to see a remake of a new adaptation of this play. I want to see a new adaptation of the play. As we fade out, well, of course, we have to have the characters kiss before we fade out. And we fade out listening to Michael Convertino's score. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining me. I mean, whoever actually came in to listen and watch, because nobody said anything in the chat. So I hope I wasn't a complete failure tonight. But I mean, I knew that not many people were going to want to join me for this. You know, obviously, I did this commentary solo, but I mean, I didn't know how many people would be actually be interested in just sitting down and watching the whole thing, with me. And I just hope that people will get to watch the movie later and listen to my commentary or not. But I mean, like I said, I just want to get this film out there. I want more people to see it. It's free on Amazon Prime. So, you can, whenever you want to watch it for the time being, it's available there. And here again, I want Paramount to put out a Blu-ray. I mean, remake talk, notwithstanding. I mean, I want to see a Blu-ray of this. I want to see a Blu-ray of this, and I want them to see them do something with this. Because honestly, I mean, considering the attention that it got, the accolades that it got, its source, that's more than enough to justify that it does deserve a Blu-ray. So, if I was in the theater in 1986, I would probably be still sitting in the theater listening to this music. I guarantee you I would be. And here, there are the credits. We're about to get the sign language interpreters for Miss Matlin, Joyce L. Cole and Patty Shore, sign language interpreter Stephen Jacobs, sign language instructors for Mr. Hurt, Mary Beth Miller, and Ann Eleanor Barwilia-Leck. Excuse me if I screw that up. All applause to them. All applause to them. Thank you for working with these actors. Jump for My Love, performed by the by the Pointer Sisters. I'll Take You There by the Staple Singers. I've Been Loving You Too Long by Otis Redding. So there's only a few songs. Michael Convertino did Boomerang. And of course, Bach's Double Concerto in D minor for violins. Second movement, Largo Ma Non Tento. And here we have the cast. And yeah, I mean, they're all wonderful. I don't have a single negative thing to say about anybody here. And it's not just for the fact I'm doing this commentary. I'm serious. They're all great. They are all great in this movie, big and small role alike. And the producers wish to thank the National Theatre of the Deaf, the Canadian Hearing Society, St. John Transit, the Ontario Ministry of Government Services, the California School for the Deaf. Yes, and very special thanks to Jeff Daniels, of all people, is listed in the credits. I wonder, yeah, I mean, and then of course the people of St. John and Pearl Harbor, New Brunswick, and that is the end of the 1986 film Children of the Lesser God. Here again, thank you so much for joining me for this audio commentary. I mean, especially, I mean, this is a movie that I absolutely love, and I knew I just wanted to talk about it and get it out there and recommend it to people. And I'll be lucky if maybe if 5 people actually listen to this commentary while watching the movie later down the road. I mean, believe me, I mean, I would love that. But at the same time. So at any rate, let me say in closing, the next commentary I will do is for this Saturday night at 10 p.m. I will be kicking off my Child's Play Chucky commentary series. Every Saturday night, I'm going to watch 2 Chucky movies, 2 Child's Play or Chucky movies, and do commentaries on them, and of course bring people on board. The last two commentaries I've done solo, and I really need to do some other movies where I know I can get people to come on board, because here again, I knew finding anybody to join me for Children of Lesser God would have been a stretch. But at any rate, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for listening. I mean, hope you are safe and healthy wherever you are. And have a great day. And be sure to follow me on Twitter at Stone Gasman. And like I said, this Saturday night, Child's Play 1 and 2 starting at 10 p.m. Eastern. Hope to see you all there. Have a good night, everybody.